Welcome to Leadership Bites with myself, your host, Guy Bloom. This is a leadership podcast where I have conversations with colleagues, I chat with guests, and sometimes there'll be just me talking. You can connect with me at livingbrave.com, and when you enjoy the episode, subscribe and please tell everyone. Ollie, absolutely fantastic to have you on this episode of Leadership Bites. Welcome.
Thank you, Guy, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here as well. I'm looking forward to this session, so thanks for inviting me.
I'm absolutely thrilled. It's always great to have people on that you have a sense of, you think you might know who they are. But of course, looking through the lens of media and all these things, you realise that you don't know anybody until you actually sit down and talk with them. So I'm looking forward to this. Now, there will be people that don't know who you are. So I'm going to ask you just to do that introduction to give people a sense of yourself.
Yeah, I'm a former UK Special Forces soldier. I actually came from the shadows into the spotlight 2015 with a spectacular show called SAS Who Dares Wins on Channel 4. And sort of paralleling to that, I also started to develop my company called BreakPoint, which is all about really unlocking people's potential. So I'm the CEO of that company, and really I sort of have the two elements in my life now. I'm now filming out in Australia as opposed to the UK with SAS Australia. But really, I'm not. My passion isn't about being a celebrity. My passion is my business. You know, it's just really the TV stuff is a tool to really give me exposure.
And I'm really alert to the fact that I don't want to get into a reliving of stories that have been told 100 times. Just if you had to go, you know what, if I was going to give you that 5 minutes of top line, but I think it's relevant just to give people a sense of the stepping stones, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A bird's eye view of where I am today. So listen, my first memory of life on this planet was 10 years old, and that was because I had a very traumatic experience at 10. It brings a smirk to my face now, but I got attacked by a chimp at the circus, which nearly killed me. So that was my sort of introduction to this beautiful world. I then had a very traumatic childhood. That was also, I blame the chimp for that, by the way, but a bit of a crazy upbringing. And then I decided to join the Royal Marines, got bored of that because it wasn't chaotic enough for me. So I decided to give the Special Forces a go, one of 5 that passed that course out of 280, and then spent 6 years in the Special Forces. I spent 11 years in the military total. After that, I then said I'd never go back to a war zone. I shortly found myself back out in a war zone as a military contractor. So I spent 5 years in Iraq as a contractor. Left there because I was struggling with mental health issues. It was a very toxic environment for your mental health, as you can imagine. I then went across to Southeast Asia, where I was rescuing kids from child prostitution and slavery, which was a life-changing event for me. And that's what really flung me back onto track of my true purpose. And that was when I understood the power of helping others. And also I, at that time, went through a grand slam of mental health issues. Again, a lot of it self-induced when it came to alcohol and things like that. But it was at that point where my life turned around and I managed to get out of that, and that coupled with the fact I saw the power of helping others, I came up with the concept of BreakPoint. BreakPoint's mission statement is to create a globally identified brand recognized for the positive growth and development of others. And that was then my mission became my primary mission. I came back to the UK 2014 and put myself through an absolute mental boot camp, changing the blueprint of who I was, really starting to get rid of those toxic habits. And over 3 months, I made a fantastic. I changed the person I was, and that's really how my company BreakPoint evolved. And at that time, when I'm thinking of how can I get exposure for this business, all of a sudden I got the opportunity for TV, which was just what I was praying for at that time. So, and then that's taken me all over the world, and obviously it's been an absolute. It's been absolutely fundamental to where I am today. It really has given me that voice. I've written 4 books now, 2 of which are Times bestsellers. I run my company BreakPoint, obviously, and I've still got my foot in the TV world. So I'm filming out in Australia, due to go back to do some filming in Feb. So yeah, busy lifestyle and a massive turnaround in the last 7 years. So
I've just realised there's about 9 podcasts here.
yeah, true.
If you just start with the chimp story, that's a podcast.
Exactly.
And it just moves on from there.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. And I'm laughing with you, not at you, I promise. Bloomin' heckers. But on that point, and running the risk of you still be talking to me on Tuesday, because I get very excited about all of this, because this is a podcast, people can find out who you are and listen to the stories and the narrative around you in 100 places, and they may come forward. But if we look at BreakPoint, just that name, just bring, and even the way the B is and all that kind of stuff, just bring to life just the vocabulary around BreakPoint and what it represents.
Yeah, BreakPoint for me, I mean, this comes from our personal journey and the things I've gone through. And it's that point really in your life when you decide that you're not prepared to accept the repeat habits that are just getting you nowhere in life. So for me, that was when I was suffering with my mental health issues. And I just said, no more. And that really is a disruptive change in habitual behavior in line with a predetermined goal. You've got to know exactly where you're going. And that immediate path into that change of habitual behavior, because our behavior is 95% habitual, is disruptive. We're going to go through some extreme discomfort when your mind is reluctant to really want to go on that journey with you. And this is why people fail at achieving anything in life, and that's bad habits to relationships, to jobs, whatever it is because as soon as they feel that discomfort, they're flung back into the repeat habit loop of the past. And that in the mind is where it's safe. Now there's no comfort there, and there's certainly no growth there, but the mind loves repetition, and we fall foul of becoming an image of the past based on past experiences. Cut a long story short, BreakPoint is stepping into the short-term discomfort for long-term gain. And the way that everyone's wired on this planet is we tend to go for the things that give us short-term comfort, but that leads us into long-term pain.
So just so I can keep up with the main party and make sure that I've understood that there's a point here when we say we're at breaking point. I'm hearing there that every habit, every set of behaviors has a point that if you're going to change, then you have to break that previous set of habits. And there's probably a point, be it emotional, be it intellectual, or whatever it might be, different for different people and set at different levels, that you've got to get yourself to that point. And I suppose on simple things, it's quite simple. The discomfort of going down to the gym for the first time and getting off your ass might be set at quite a low thing for some people. For other things, it could be a massive redefining of self or whatever. But there's a point where you've got to break that behaviour. Is that what I've heard there?
That is absolutely spot on. I think you should come and work for us, Guy.
We'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah. But no, that's absolutely it. When I first started BreakPoint, and I was so passionate about that name because, I referred back to the chimp story. When I was a kid, 10 years old, that was my first BreakPoint, and I lay underneath that chimp where it's tearing flesh off me. And I had 2 choices. One of them was just to try and defend myself and just curl into a ball, or I could retaliate. And to retaliate, that was stepping into extreme discomfort, because you've got to imagine when you retaliate to a grown chimp, it's going to up the ante, it's going to increase the anger. So, but we've got to, I had to step into that discomfort for any chance of survival that day. And that was short-term discomfort being fighting a grown chimp at 10 years old. But the long-term gain of that was living today to be able to tell the tale. Now, I'm not suggesting anyone go down to the circus or try and find something in parallel with that experience, but this is something that we're faced with every single day, and that is the small stuff, like the dishes in the sink the night before. You're a bit tired, I'll just leave it to the next day, and what you essentially do then is drag all your crap into the next day with you. That is just like an example. It could be anything when just by going that extra mile will benefit you. But your mind, especially when it's tired, is always looking for the path of least resistance. It's always looking to conserve energy. And we have these behaviours that are extremely subconscious, based on our primal instincts, that if we don't recognise them, really do hold us back and keep us in this safe environment where there's no growth whatsoever. So you've absolutely nailed it in your example or your reflection of what BreakPoint is. But it's really recognizing those moments and understanding that if we want to make the changes, if we want to get rid of the negative habits, we can't just sit there and not, first of all, recognize them and then understand it's not going to be comfortable. But understanding we're heading to somewhere that is more desirable than where we're currently at. And every single person in their life has got something that they know is holding them back or is not serving them any longer. That for me, and I use this as an example, was alcohol. That was one of my hardest battles to combat. My mind, because I've been drinking since 14, my mind told me, you'll never do that. You'll never do that. And the problem there is because your brain can't see the path to target. And this is where, I'm always talking about goals. When we look at goals, your brain needs to see the path. It needs to see the footprints. When it can't see the footprints, it negates it can be done. But these are the goals we should be aiming for. You don't need to see the path. Like for me, starting BreakPoint, when I was broken, I couldn't see the path. For me to stop drinking, I couldn't see the path. But the more we tell ourselves it can't be done, the more your mind will listen to that. Your mind will listen to exactly what you tell it. And the body is just an instrument of the mind. So the more we tell it, whatever we tell ourselves will become our reality.
I buy into this massively. And one of the simplest examples I have of that may seem quite benign, I think, but actually I hope reinforces your position is if you've ever lost keys in the house, if you walk around going, I can't find my keys, I can't see my keys, well, you won't find them. And somebody taught me this trick. They go, when you've lost your keys, walk around going, when I see them, I'll see them.
Yeah.
And actually then you'll actually find your keys.
This is 100%. And it also works when you're thinking, you're rushing around and you're doing stuff and you're going, I must not forget my keys. So what messaging? What's your brain hearing? Forget the keys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the more you...
The unconscious mind can't process negatives.
Exactly. That's right. I'm receiving that, by the way. And that's exactly it. That whole language, you have to change that whole language because we don't understand as humans how powerful, we think it's just a spoken word that we have to be cautious of, but it's not. It's the thoughts. And this is the whole thing about, we have 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Some people a lot less. But the thing is, you've got to understand in this predominantly negative world and the fact that we are wired negatively, and that's simply for survival reasons. There's nothing, as soon as any kind of threat becomes apparent, your whole body will fixate on that threat. It's just part of our human nature. And really, you've got to understand that if we don't have some conscious filter of the things we're thinking about here, then anything that's impressed upon the subconscious becomes our behaviors and our outcomes. And really, I'm no psychologist. I'm not, but I have studied a lot into this, and to me, it simply makes so much sense, and certainly something that I've been running my life by, and my life has turned around dramatically. And I think anyone that doesn't tap into not only the power of the mind, but has some kind of mind management program, is simply missing out, and also, regardless, will have some kind of mental health issues at some point in their life if they're not doing already. So we really need to respect this a lot more because, like I said, the body is just an instrument of the mind, and it does exactly what your mind tells it to do.
I think also what I hear there is that there are some things that you talk about that are universally true, but you're not offering the world the truth. Some things definitely are true, but then you're offering your experience and you're offering your interpretation. And just like somebody reads a book, not everybody's going to love the book that you write or the food that you cook, but you're looking for the ones that it does make sense to. And you can't make everybody agree or connect, but actually the more you have exposure, the more then you'll probably get course corrected because you're speaking to more people, you're getting more examples of where it doesn't work, you get to calibrate it more and more. So it becomes, as a product and a proposition, it becomes more on point, more specific and more capable. I can see how that's going to grow. When you look at who you want on BreakPoint, is this aimed at a corporate proposition? Is this aimed at the man in the street that's having a moment with himself and just needs to redefine? All of the above. Give me that. Who's the audience for the BreakPoint proposition?
Yeah, Guy, that's a brilliant question because we spent a lot of time when we first started at BreakPoint back in 2015. We very much focused on more of face-to-face and physical kind of courses and stuff. We were using the physical to really start to help people to unlock their potential. Using the special forces background, because the majority of people haven't been in the special forces, so we're doing scenarios and things that people had never experienced. And really, to really create that kind of development in people, you have to put them in a situation where they're vulnerable, because anyone in their comfort zone, that's when the ego starts to flare, and the ego really blocks any kind of development, any kind of camaraderie as well. There's a block there. So when you put them into something where they've got no ability to design the perfect outcome that makes them look good, again the ego, then their thoughts, feelings, reactions, actions and reactions become very, very organic, very raw. And this is why on the TV show, for those that have seen it, this is why there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of emotion, because this is the first time that people have actually connected back with the rawness of who they really are. So anyway, the point being, I digress a little bit there, but the point being that we used basically initially the public courses to then refine the model for the corporates. And then more recently, because we were very front facing, we got a facility up in Shrewsbury, where I am at the moment, big industrial unit, and we built classrooms and I invested loads of money. We had a gym upstairs and everything, and then we got smashed by lockdown. That forced us into then turning the classrooms into studios, or a studio where I was doing virtual talks constantly to 3 a week to corporate organizations as a whole. And that really then started us to understand, that we could have a much bigger impact if we went online and virtual. So really that has become the narrative. And then we said, well, are we going to just focus on corporates, or is it going to be individuals, or what? Is there a separation? And then we thought there's absolutely no separation whatsoever. You're either an individual or you're a team. If you're a team, you're probably in a corporate organization or whatever. But it is for any and every person on this planet. Now, we do a lot of corporate work, but we are now pushing into, making the platform accessible just to anyone that wants to be part of that. So really at the end of the day, our whole ethos is to focus on the individual from the ground roots up. There's a lot of companies piling training onto people, leadership this or new skills and everything else, and they're forgetting the raw essentials of who that person is. It's a bit of a sort of cliche, and obviously well known that a corporate, any kind of business is built by the strength of its people. And you hear a lot of corporates saying that, but what are they doing about it? Are they actually looking at the growth of that person as an individual and making sure they've got a root system that is so strong that when they get hit from the side from something that they don't know's coming, by that ambush, that corporate ambush, how are they dealing with that? So really, again, we focus on the individual, regardless whether it's a corporate entity or someone that's walking on the street. And the amount of mental health issues we've got going on out there, and I'd like to talk about that probably in a minute. I'll come up for a breather and let you have a bit of a input. But there's so much going on with mental health, especially we're starting to look at MOD, we're starting to look at NHS, we're starting to look at the construction industry, which I have worked quite passionately alongside. And there is so much mental health issues, and I just believe we have a real problem out there at the moment, not just because of mental health issues, but I don't believe the message that's out there is very positive. I just feel that, everyone's going on about mental health. Great that we're having recognition for people having mental health issues. But I'm a great believer that the more we focus on anything, the bigger it becomes. Now, if we're going to focus on what problems people have got, everyone on this planet can find something that they can relate to mental health issues with in their lives. So all of a sudden, you've got everyone, instead of focusing on, the positive things in their life, thinking about the problems they've got, thinking about personal issues they've got. And before you know it, we're more focused on the negatives than the positives. So really, a lot of these organizations, okay, let's recognize mental health, but also what is your mental wealth plan? What's everyone doing to invest in? What's your plan for people to invest in themselves? I work with corporates, and there is nothing around them doing activities, focused on exercise and etc. etc. All these things which really are positive for this up here. Also, this message about it's okay to not be okay. Now, if you leave that just there, that is a acceptance speech for being messed up, and it's almost like anyone suffering with something. Oh well, it's okay to not be okay. I'm going to become more insular to the outside world and just accept how messed up I am. I agree with that, but what are we going to do about it now we've recognised?
Well, there's a lot here, and I do quite a lot of work with the construction industry. And if male suicide's 2 to 3 times higher than female, then it's 3 to 5 times higher in the construction industry. So it's quite considerable. So I feel that. One of the things I also noticed that I'm in my 50s now, and
great age.
I know I literally just feel as if I've got my shizzle together at this point.
Likewise.
But it's hilarious. There's something I've noticed, which is that there are a lot of people that have an opinion. I mean, we've all got opinions on things. A lot of people that have been on courses, or they've got a certificate or whatever it is. And that's very different to lived experience, which I'm very careful with that word, because that can be used to say you can't argue with me because of my lived experience. But actually, when you've got people that have lived through definitive experiences, which is to me a slightly different focus on the word, I think you're right. There is something very powerful around acknowledging reality, but then stepping into embracing it and doing something about it. Acknowledging reality and staying where you are, I feel, is a get out of jail free card. And I see that a lot. And I've noticed little things like psychological safety, which is a term that's I use, and also a flavour of the month. However, what I notice is that some people, and I've had these conversations, well, the thing is, Guy, people shouldn't feel under threat. They shouldn't be put into difficult situations. And I go, no, that's not right. No, the fact is, if I'm having a very earnest conversation with somebody and they feel under threat, that's not the same as me threatening them. If I offer somebody an observable behaviour that is not working for them and they find that difficult, that is not shaming them. That's offering them insight and counsel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there is an over cushioning that takes away from people being able to do the real work of, back to your point, which is moving forward. So that really, really resonates with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I'm glad we agree on that and have, past experience to qualify that as well. But I tell you what, I actually do some work with a few universities, but I've been a lecturer, believe it or not. I say that, believe it or not, to myself more than anything, because I was a non-believer at school and just sort of threw in the towel at 14. But I'm now a lecturer at Manchester Metropolitan University, and when I've been running that course, like, there's always, you've got to accept all the feedback. But the guy that I sort of liaise with up there, he says, "You're not going to believe this this feedback we've got." And I said, "Yeah, just let me know then. What is it?" And he said, well, someone really didn't enjoy your content because it really made them look at themselves. I was like, well, you know what? At least it's doing what I planned it to do. That's and I felt that is exactly what it's meant to do. But people aren't prepared to be responsible. People aren't prepared to acknowledge their weaknesses. In this world that everyone is out there faking perfection, you've only got to look at Egogram. Everyone's on there faking perfection, and it's like, this is the world that we're being brought into. That you don't have to really lift your finger to do anything. It's becoming a very lazy world. This utopia that we're led to believe is what we're all striving for. That you shouldn't have any problems. No stresses, no nothing in your life. We were put on this planet. We're problem solvers. That's what the human mind absolutely loves. I thank God for problems. Some of them are a bit unfavorable than others, but I thank God for problems because it keeps us striving forward. This is where we learn. This is where we grow. This is where we develop. And a lot of people don't actually understand that when they're having some kind of mental health issues and problems, they simply haven't got anything that they're pushing against. There's no resistance in their lives. We need a level of stress, and we need that resistance. You need that level of stress because if nothing else, it engages your immune system. This is why a lot of people, they finish their working life, their careers. My auntie was exactly an example of this. And then very shortly afterwards, they're 6 foot under. I mean, and that's because, it's like almost like heaven's waiting room. As soon as they've been of service, and therefore my auntie worked for about 30 years, I think. And then in the last 2 years, she only had 2 years left after that. And really, no disrespect. I love my auntie, but she spent most of her time pushing, a pen around her iPad. You know what I mean? It's like people have got to understand. We need that pressure. We need that the problem solving. We need to push ourselves into discomfort.
There's a book called Anti-Fragile, and
Well, I know.
it's and people talk about resilience, and I go, I get that, but resilience also means, we talk about bounce back ability and all those kind of phrases, which is great, but it also means you got damaged in the first place. And I look at my 10-year-old and I go, do I want him to bounce back if he's damaged? Yeah, but I also want him to be anti-fragile.
Yeah.
Which is not to get hurt in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's in a middle-class household, and his biggest issue is if the Wi-Fi goes a bit wonky, or he hasn't got the correct panneau chocolates from Marks and Spencer. I mean, he's absolutely clueless. God bless him. As much as I love him, is he resilient? Yeah, he's a tough little so-and-so. And when he fell over when he was a baby, I'd run over and pick him up. But now when he falls over, I pause and I look at him, and he looks at me,
Yeah.
and I go like that, and he goes, and I go, well done.
Yeah.
Because he's got to be made anti-fragile.
Yeah.
These are middle-class examples. And I think this is the thing in the workplace, and I think it's what I'm hearing you, that not rushing to protect, showing the person and giving them the tools to actually move forward. He, she is very difficult. They're very direct. They're rude and bullying. Okay, are you asking me to rescue you or to help you find a new approach so you can manage it? What do you want here? Anti-fragile, or this idea of actually dealing with the source, going to the source, facing into the reality of where you are. There seems to be a lot of people that are almost, no, you've informed us now. We'll come and rescue you. We'll tell them what they're doing wrong. We'll retrain them. And then you never learn to deal with it other than to go and tell somebody, if it gets to a point of bullying and no return, of course. But actually, there is a point of that I think is potentially we're at risk of that getting control.
Yeah, no, 100%. And and also I'd like to go back. I mean, resilience, that's something that's bounced around all over. What is resilience? Resilience is bouncing back from, a disappointment, a failure, whatever it is. But, I really wish they, in my presentations when I go and see companies, it's like, thank God for failure. Because failure means, as long as you're using failure in the correct way. I mean, a typical failure in the most common terms is the fact we turn around and it keeps us away from the things we're aiming for. But failure is an absolute weapon, and if you're not failing, your goals aren't big enough, and you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. Now, failure means that, what did I learn? And there's 3 simple questions. It's like, on a military debrief is, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? How am I going to do it differently when I do it again? And I'm as I keep saying, I'm big on goals. People don't realize in this world that regardless of whether you choose them or not, our mind is driven towards our dominant thoughts, which become our goals. So, it's about learning and embracing that failure. So, like I say, if you're not failing, then simply your goals aren't big enough. You're not being challenged, and it's where we learn and grow. And when I say about goals, it's not just about getting a material object or anything like that. It's not what you get; it's how you grow. And really, you want, our mind, it needs that sense of purpose and needs to feel like we're making progress towards something. You know what I mean? And that creates balance and happiness and enthusiasm and zest.
So if an organisation was listening to this and they were thinking, what would we get if we spoke to BreakPoint? What would they be looking for you to do? What are you saying? Listen, if you engage with us, we can take your people. Is it from new talent through to the executive team? We can take them on a journey that does the following. How would you bring that to life?
Well, a very, very simple explanation of what we do. We change the way people think. And really, when we look at a corporate organisation, there's a lot of investment goes into the management team and their development and everything else. Now, if you only invest in the management team and the senior management team, and those learnings, whatever, not just come to BreakPoint, but in any facet of sort of company or corporate development, if you only focus on the senior management team and not the sort of people below that, then you've got an organization that's doing that. You know what I mean? So really for us, that's about us getting a senior management team, which we just ran one of these courses last week, and really starting to work with them. It's like getting them all to first of all, look at the structure of them as an individual, then start to look into teamwork, because the more we can empower each and every individual, when they come together and they've got that shared objective, shared goal, they're unstoppable. But you then also, for us, this is why we're building the online platform now, because obviously we had a company just a couple of days ago for a day, and they've got 3,000 employees. You can't, in numbers of 25, we can't have that. It's not practical just to have those coming through. But this is the power of having that online portal that then everyone below the senior management team can then go through that course. So whatever these are doing at the top, the two come together and they fuse. If you don't have that, then you've just got the senior management team talking and speaking in a language that's not understood by everyone underneath. So it's so important, at the end of the day, there's so people out there you've got to get people in your organization, not to be coming into work every day going, I'm doing this because I'm paying the bills. I need this because I've got my mortgage. You've got to stop that. They've got to really start to reframe everything and start to think. First of all, I think, which is really powerful, is how their job relates to the service of others. What am I doing that is in the service of others? Like insurance, for instance. Do people in insurance ever think of the good they're doing and helping people's lives? Because that's how we need to reflect. You have to have your whole organization with a mission statement that relates to that and reflects that. And not just have people coming along because they're working the payroll. So really that is the message. We're changing a culture, and that's not easy. But the thing is, once you change the hub or you get enough people engaged with that, it's contagious. It's the people follow the herd, right? So, that is the way that we work at BreakPoint. That is the preferred model. And also, I do a lot of talks for companies. Now, I've always been conscious. You can't change a culture in 1 hour. A lot of times HR are like that. Yep, ticked, we've done that. But how you embrace it, the things we talk about, and that's why we obviously, people think, oh, it's just pushing for extra business. But you need to, people can't change habits or cultures for about 60 days of repetition. There was something around saying 20, 21 days, rubbish, absolute rubbish. You need to keep that learning to really make that effective change. So, and this is really where it all comes back to BreakPoint. You've got to recognize where you're heading, and you've got to understand that breaking out of those monotonous habits is difficult, but you have to embrace that and really embrace change. We humans don't embrace change. When you look at the human mind, when it's linked to survival, our mind wants to keep us locked in what we did yesterday and the day before that and the day before that, because as far as our minds are concerned, it's kept us alive until today. It doesn't give a damn about your job. It doesn't give a damn about how many followers you've got on Instagram. There's no stronger driving force in any one of us than our drive for survival. And we have a blueprint and subconscious behaviors that are linked to that sort of primal instinct of who we are.
Is this we're going to do outward bound stuff? Is it no, we're going to do a combination of, classroom based things? What would that, and everybody's going to have a bespoke proposition probably, but in essence, what normally happens, Guy, is this?
Yeah, basically, listen, we're not an off the shelf company. It's not like, well, we've got this. At the end of the day, we feed into the strengths and weaknesses of that company. There's companies that are, got the tail between their legs because they've had a tough time. We've got like a company I was dealing with the other day. They've had the last 2 years of absolutely massive growth, and they're in a dangerous place as well. And they, from that sort of the pre-brief and everything else, that fact finding, they are sat there going, but how can we make it any better? We've done so well. There's no way we can match what we've done. And they've done it for the last 2 years. But And you've got to break that stigma that, oh, but we can't go any further than that. So you've got a different sort of, you've got to feed from the company about exactly, and they've got to be 100% honest with where they are. From that, we then develop. It all depends. I mean, our ideal course is the fact they come and spend 2 days with us, and we have a day in the classroom. We then have a day out on the ground. Now, the first day is all about mindset. It's about, really starting to focus on goals, understanding how we're wired as humans, all this, that, and the other. Teamwork, leadership, everything and we have a workshop as well, which is called Mission Critical, which is absolutely brilliant, based on a Special Forces mission. So it's not just a case of PowerPoint and stuff like that. It's very interactive. And then the second day, all those principles of leadership and everything, we build a scenario. We've got a scenario, based on military special forces, but again, we're not training them to be military special forces. We're putting them into something where they have no idea or no control. And like I say, if you allow people to work within their comfort zone and familiar surroundings, they're not going to grow. So really, the next day is not about, it's not about physical beastings or anything like that. People think, oh, they've seen the TV program, HR are like going, there's no way we'd ever do that. But it's not about that. We put them into situations where they're forced to work together as a team. The layers of pressure or mental pressures. So they have to work on the ground, going from A to B, working out things and really swapping the roles of leadership, etc., etc. But we 100% believe that unless you must have a practical execution of the theory-based elements the day before to really get into the subconscious mind.
I think what I'm really hearing there is taking away the normal levers that might exist and the normal power structures that exist that people may have habitualized what they do on. How much of what you do gets done because of the position you inhabit as opposed to the person that you're actually being? Well, let's find that out, and let's find that out in this space, because actually you can't pull the normal levers or press the normal buttons because they don't exist here. So it feels like it's a way of cutting through the habits, but also maybe that sense of identity that you've created for yourself that may only be dependent on the role that you're in and not necessarily linked to your own capability. So it might reinforce it and validate it, but it also may show gaps. Have I heard that correctly?
Yeah, no, definitely. And one thing I'd like to say on that is that we've had no end of courses where, we create a perception of a person within in our comfort zone and in the office and our working environment. And then when we put them into situations of working together, honestly, talk about a relationship builder. People see things in people that they never have ever seen before. And, all of a sudden, the quiet office girl that really doesn't say a lot in the office is the one that comes forward at that moment of pressure and really delivers the goods. And honestly, it's just incredible. We've had that happen on a number of occasions. It's incredible.
Do you know what I've been doing with recently? This will make you smile a little bit, but I've been almost insisting that EAs join the process. They are the ones that consistently come forward as being the most coherent, yeah, the most on point. And actually, they know all the Billy bullshit that goes on amongst everybody. And they often come to the front as being a predominantly strong leader in that team. And I see it again and again and again. Are you writing your EA? No, I think you should. They all, but then they do, and they go, holy crap, why isn't that person on the board? I go, well, exactly. Because they've been exposed to it as well for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So they have this direct experience. So I really buy into that.
Yeah, I love that as well, because, at the end of the day, people sort of compartmentalize people. It's like as soon as you label them, you limit them. And you know what I mean? Your role is X. And as soon as you create that label, it's almost like a limitation mentally on what that person's capability and what they do within the office. And also for them personally as well. It's like you really should have, you have your roles and responsibilities, but like a special forces team, you are prepared to step outside that and take the job of someone else. A lot of people in the corporate world as well, they're like, well, I'm paid for this job and I'm not going to do anything more than that. And anyone that wants to be in a successful team is like doing the next job up. They're really pushing, I'm not being paid, but I'm doing that. And those are the people that advance in this corporate world. The people that say, well, I'm not paid to do that. they're going to stay exactly where they are for the rest of their career. They're not going to advance as much as that person that is doing the role above on a constant basis.
I like that. I talk about contribution beyond your own need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like a kibbutz. I've fundamentally failed this year, but I've been very helpful to everybody else. No, there is something there about, you're right, that willingness to enable and contribute, and I love that. So listen, I'm super alert to time. I kind of aim for around sort of 45 minutes on an episode. For people that have maybe heard the name or seen the TV show, or even have just heard you for the first time here, I noticed the books that you've got behind you, but it'd be great just to bring those to life.
So we're talking about these ones up here, but basically this is my first book there. That's BreakPoint, obviously. But BreakPoint really sort of laid the foundation. That's more, it is there's some great points in there. It is along the lines of self-development, but really it lays the platform or the ground or the foundation for who I am. So really gives me the credibility to, I've got to build that credibility to be able to talk about the stuff that I do. And that really was my first book, 2018. That was Times bestseller. And that went on to then Battle Ready, which is my other, that is a self-development book. So Battle Ready is really when I came back from bouncing all over the world, 2014, landed back in the UK with the sole intention of starting my business BreakPoint, but I had to make those changes. It's the house I went to down in Cornwall. My family had a spare house at that time, and I basically locked myself away. And I would, for the first time in my life, Guy, I took absolute responsibility for where I was at, and we are so fixated on the fact that everything is external. That's the way that we're programmed, happiness, success, blame, everything is external. And that was the first time in my life when I came back and I realized or took responsibility and went, yeah, these things might have happened to me, the chimp, the whatever, but I'm still responsible for where I am today. And it was the first time I took responsibility for that. And that then, I no longer blame the outside world for anything. It was the first time I then looked within, and that was an epiphany, mate. Absolutely understanding that all the answers are within. That changed my life. And that really is the foundations of that book. The process that I put myself through in those 3 months in that house, that's why the book is called Battle Ready. Battle Ready is a call to action. It's not just to sit down, have a cup of tea and have a read and go, oh, that's interesting. At the end of each chapter, there's exercises to do, and it's a call to action. And I don't mind sitting here and blowing my own trumpet and saying it's brilliant, because I've had so much feedback from people that are on, from the edge of suicide, people that have just been fired from their jobs and having to redefine their lives, from people that are doing well but just want to keep on bettering themselves, and those emails coming in saying you've changed my life. I don't need anything more than that, because that is the best payment I will ever get. There's no better return on investment than that, knowing you've actually affected someone's life. So that really was BreakPoint. I then dipped Battle Ready. I then dipped my toe into the fiction world. That was a bit of a struggle for me, because I am so passionate about changing people's lives. But once I then realised that there's nothing better than storytelling, is there? It's gone throughout the ages, and so many messages within those stories. So I then realised a lot of people will not read the self-development books. They won't read they want a fiction book. So again, these books are really about a story. There's a lot of truth in it, although it is fiction, but it's heavily elaborated. But really, the 2 fiction books really do sort of tell the story of me leaving the military 2000, year 2000, when my war really began. And that was the war with myself. You know what I mean? There was this battle raging inside, and this is covered in Battle Ready as well. And again, I was because whatever's internal becomes our external. Now, going back to 10 years old, being attacked by that chimp, I had a war raging in me like you would not believe. And that then made me look for chaos in every aspect of my life. Not just being at war and stuff like that, but my relationships at school, in my jobs, everything, I was looking for chaos. And even when, the military, they train you to be at flow in chaos. They want you to be at flow and feel natural in chaos. I call it peace in war. And you can't just turn that off when you decide to leave. And that really, on the output, in your reality, becomes your relationships, your jobs, everything. I was searching for that chaos, and I found it. And it wasn't until much later in my life, it's only seven years ago when I put myself into that place and actually started to become aware of what was going on. It all changed. But yeah, they're the books. So
in terms of BreakPoint, the web address for BreakPoint is?
It's break, as you can see above, but it's break-point.co.uk.
Okay, and I'll put that in the information as well. So listen, I'm going to bring this to a close. I'm going to say this is a great conversation. There's a passion. We all carry our history and you've got yours. But I think what I really see and notice and I find very admirable is I can see you forward facing. I can see the clarity that you've got on that's where I'm going, and it's whatever it is now, I know it's going to be more than it is in the future, so it'll be exciting to see that. So this is from me, from listeners, just thank you so much. Hold on for a few minutes when I say goodbye, just so we can make sure everything's uploaded, but it's been an absolute joy. Thank you.
And likewise, mate, it's been a talk all day. Thanks for having me on.
That's it, so I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please share so others get to hear about us, and subscribe so you keep up to date on new episodes. Also visit livingbrave.com if you want to connect with me and find out more about executive coaching, team effectiveness and changing culture. Oh, and of course you can buy my book Living Brave Leadership on Amazon. So on that note, see you soon.